Okay, I am Tracy Lee. I'm the Family Engagement Specialist for Special Education and Student Services at the Virginia Department of Education. As Courtney said a few minutes ago, the final slide, you're going to see my email address and my phone number at my office. I am not working at my office right now. I'm working at home, but if you call and leave me a message on my phone at work, I check those messages several times a day. And I am very happy to get back with you with answers to your specific questions. Okay, next. Okay. So this presentation is a presentation that I've done in the past about homework and study strategies, but I have adapted it because we are in an environment now where some of your kids are probably in school 5 days a week. Some of your kids are in school maybe a couple of days a week and then learning at home the rest of the time. And some of your kids are doing school completely virtually. So we're going to talk about how to address issues for all of your kids, regardless of what kind of a setting they're learning in right now. For all kids. This is for all kids who are learning at home virtually, but also for kids who are in school but doing homework in the evenings or doing homework on the weekends. These are just some tips for all kids to help things go a little bit more smoothly. Number one, you want to have a specific place set up where they do their schoolwork. And you might even want to have two places set up for kids just so that they get a change of scenery every once in a while, especially if they're learning at home. But especially for kids who are doing homework, it's really a good idea to have one specific place in the house where they go to do their work. It might be a desk in their bedroom. It might be the dining room table. It might be the couch in the living room. Every child is different, just like every parent is different. I know my kids, I have 3 kids, and one of my kids had to have complete solitude and complete silence in order to be able to do his work. But then I had another kid who really, she needed to be sort of in the middle of everything. So she needed to be at the kitchen table where there was activity around her, and she was able to better concentrate when she could see everybody else in the house. So you know your child, but each child needs to have a specific place to do their work. Another thing you want to do for each child in your house is create a schoolwork toolkit. In this toolkit, you want to put anything that they could potentially need in order to be able to do their work. Things like Scotch tape, glue, a ruler, magic markers, anything that they might need. Have each child gets their own kit, and have a kit for each child. And that way, there is nothing worse than getting your child finally settled down in the right homework spot, ready to do their homework, and you need Scotch tape and you can't find it. So it takes you 15 minutes to find the tape, and by the time you find the tape, your kid is off to the races again. It really is best if you can create a kit for each child and have it right by the place where they're going to be able to do their work. It makes things go a lot more smoothly. Allow music, but not visual media. A lot of people, and studies actually, scientific studies actually bear this out. A lot of people can learn better and can concentrate better when they have music playing in the background. I am not one of those people. I have to have complete silence. And so one of my kids really does need music in order to be able to work. And it really kind of has always confused me about how he can possibly concentrate better with music going. But a lot of kids really do need that. So if they say that they work better with music, you might want to allow that. Visual media, things like the television, video games, smartphones, where they're actually looking at things, that's generally distracting overall for all people. So even if you allow music, you don't want to allow visual media while they're doing their work. Break large projects into manageable chunks. And this is for large projects, but it's also for maybe assignments that are a little meaty. Like if your child has a 20-problem math worksheet that they have to do for homework, it's much easier for most people if you can break it up into manageable chunks and then maybe take a small break after each chunk. You also want to have an idea of how your child likes to learn, learning preferences. We used to call these learning styles. And it used to be widely believed that everybody has a specific learning style, like they learn visually better, or they learn through hearing better. And if you present the information to a person in their preferred learning style, that they're going to learn more effectively. The research has actually not borne that out. What we have found is most people have a learning preference, but almost universally, people learn better when their content is provided to them in a multitude of ways. And so I might like to learn best through seeing So I might prefer learning visually, but still, if you provide my information to me visually and through audio means and allowing me to do as I work, so kinesthetic, I'm going to learn better. So we want to make sure that our kids, their content is presented to them in a variety of ways. But if you find out what your child's preferred method of receiving information is, that might make it easier for them to do their homework. So for example, one of my kids, I told you I have 3 kids. One is 23 years old. She's a kindergarten teacher and she has ADHD, and she had an IEP for speech. My son, my middle child, is a junior in college and he's typically developing. And then I have a son who is a senior in high school and getting ready to graduate. All of these kids have different learning preferences, but one of them specifically, when he was little, I remember we would be doing his spelling words and he would be running all over the place. He'd be climbing over couches and climbing door jambs, and it used to drive me crazy. And I would say, sit still, you need to sit still and pay attention. But what I found over time was when I made him sit still and pay attention to me, he couldn't spell the words as efficiently or as correctly as if I called the words to him and let him run around the room and spell them back to me. And so I finally just determined he learns best when he's moving. So I let him move around while we were doing those sort of memorizing, studying things. So if you can find out how your child prefers to receive information, that can make your homework go more smoothly. But just understand that when your child's trying to learn information, that they really do need the information presented to them in a variety of ways, regardless of what their preferences are. Okay, so special considerations for virtual learners. Virtual learning, I think for all of us has been there's been a large learning curve for all of us, and I think that it has been challenging, I will say, to put it mildly. And there are some things that we have found for people who have to sit in front of computer screens for the vast majority of their day. There are certain things that we need to keep in mind, but especially with our kids. Number one, maintain regular bedtime routines. It can be kind of rough when we are at home all of the time. Sometimes it feels like there's no real delineation from one day to the next. And so some of us allow our kids to get into a routine of maybe going to bed really late and getting up really late. And you have to do what works best for you and your household. But your child is probably going to function at a higher level if he or she has regular bedtime routines. And that doesn't mean they have to go to bed at 8 and get up at 6. It might mean in your house, it works better for you if they go to bed at 10 and get up at 8, or if they go to bed at 7 and get up at 5. But the crux of it is that they really need to have a regular bedtime routine. No matter what schedule you choose, try to keep them on a regular bedtime schedule. You want to establish and maintain routines. Again, it is very difficult when one day sort of bleeds into the next, and every month bleeds into the next month, and it feels like we're never getting out of 2020. But it makes it even more important to establish and maintain routines for your kids. And, obviously on the weekends, you don't have to be quite as strict with this stuff, but while they're trying to do school, whether it's virtual school or whether it's at school, on the days when they're at home, it's going to work best for you if you do try to establish and maintain some routines for your kids. Make and post schedules with words and pictures on them so that your kids know what's coming next. You can maybe show a picture of them getting out of bed, showing a picture of them eating breakfast, showing a picture of them getting their clothes on, show a picture of them sitting down in front of the computer screen, show a picture of them getting up and walking around the block. Okay, to get some movement. But you want to establish and maintain these routines, and then you also want to have them written down somewhere, either in words or in pictures, so that they can understand what's coming next. You as a parent, you need to ask for help when you need it. This is not just hard for our kids. This is really hard on all of us. Some of us are having to completely relearn how to do our jobs. I know I'm having to completely relearn how to do my job. We're having to get used to a scenario where maybe we're all working and going to school in the same house at the same time all of the time. There's a lot more togetherness. We don't know when or how all of this is going to end exactly. It can be really, really challenging. It can be anxiety provoking. It can be a little bit depressing. It can be a little bit scary. So if you are coming to a place where you feel like you are struggling, ask for help. You can ask your kids' teachers for help, ask your kids' counselors for help, ask your doctor for help, ask your friends for help. We are all in a really, really weird place right now. And I know I can tell you for me specifically, most days I do fine, but there are some days that are rough, and you are going to be able to help your kids much more effectively if you can pick up that phone when you need to and say, hey, I'm struggling today. So please make sure that you ask for the help that you need. It's kind of like on an airplane when they say you have to put your oxygen mask on first so that you can help everybody else. It's the same scenario. You need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you can help your kids take care of their needs and their learning needs. You also want to make time for your kids and for yourselves who are doing virtual learning to move and be outside. I know that I found out very early on with all of this that I needed to make sure I get outside at least once or twice a day, even if it's just for a little 5-minute walk around, up and down my street. There's something about the air and the sunshine and the moving my body around a little bit that helps me get back to a place where I can concentrate again. It's far more important. The movement and the being outside is more important now than it's ever been. So make sure that for your virtual learners, you're making time for them to be able to take those little breaks because they're really, really important. Okay, no matter who our kids are, who we are for that matter, and no matter whether they have disabilities or they don't have disabilities, all of us have different issues with work and with working at home and doing homework and things like that. And all of these different issues require different sets of solutions. So we're going to go through these issues one by one, and you'll probably recognize your kids in some of these issues. You might recognize yourself in some of these issues, and we'll talk about different solutions to address them. Okay, let's talk first about the child, or the adult for that matter, who is disorganized. The disorganized child or adult, the set place, time, and toolkit for doing work are essential for this child. They have to, you really want to make sure they go to the same place at generally the same time every day to do their homework. And it doesn't have to be the same for every kid in your house, I mean. So you might have one child who, when they come home in the afternoons and they get off the bus, you really need to get them to do their homework right then while they're still in school mode. Okay, so they get off the bus, maybe have a snack, immediately sit down in the dining room with their toolkit and get their homework done. But then you might have another child of yours who really, they need a break and they need a chance to get outside and move their bodies, and there's no way that they're going to be able to concentrate as soon as they get home from school. So maybe one of your children does his homework at 4 o'clock in the dining room, but you have another child who does her homework after dinner in her bedroom. That's completely fine. It doesn't need to be the same time for each kid. But if you have a child who tends to be disorganized, having a set place and a set time and making sure that that toolkit is where he or she can get to it easily, that's really, really, really important. You want to help your child to do a weekly clean sweep. The clean sweep is the backpack, maybe if they are going back and forth between home and school, but it can also be a clean sweep of their workspace, that place where they do their their actual virtual school or their homework or whatever. At the end of each week, whatever needs to be cleaned out, whether it's a backpack or a desk or the dining room table or whatever, get rid of everything that's trash. File or put away everything that needs to be kept but doesn't need to be in the backpack or right in that spot, and then keep everything on the desk or in the backpack that needs to be kept there. That way, at least every week, you're starting off fresh and you're starting off clean and you're starting off organized. If you wait until the end of a month or the end of a quarter or the end of a semester, I think that you have probably found this in the past with the disorganized kid. You empty out that backpack and you find, you might find a banana from 1985 or something. You definitely don't want to go that long. You want to be doing this at least minimally every week for the disorganized kid. Create a launching pad by the door. And this is obviously for kids who are going to school right now. Every evening when homework is done, put everything that the child is going to need right by the door. And every kid maybe at the door has their own specific spot, maybe for their lunchbox and their backpack and their gym clothes and whatever it is that they're going to need. So when they're running out the door in the morning, they're not having to find everything. They put it all there the night before. All they have to do is gather it up in their arms and walk out the door. It helps with organization hugely. Utilize technology. Most of our kids, and even a lot of our kids with disabilities, are using these things now. They're using smartphones or they're using tablets. And there are many, many, many different programs out there for Android users and for Apple users. And I don't give lists because they evolve so quickly. But if you go into your apps or do a Google search, you can find, organization tools for middle schoolers. And you'll find a bunch of different apps and their ratings that will tell you how they work for kids. Smartphones for kids these days, if they're going to have them anyway, they might as well be a useful tool. And if we can put some apps on their phone to help them stay organized, that's going to be a really good thing for them. Also, for kids who are actually going to school right now, you want to have a specific folder for work that's to be turned in. I know with one of my kids, it used to frustrate me endlessly because I would know that she did her homework. I would sit there and watch her do her homework, and then I'd find out it didn't get turned in. And I'd say, how on earth didn't it get turned in? You did it. I watched you do it. But there was a disconnect between doing the work at home and handing it to her teacher. And so we created an actual folder for her, and that folder's only purpose, that folder was the folder that the homework went in to get to school to give to the teacher. So you might just buy one specific folder, or if your kid uses one of those big binders, maybe create a place in the back of that binder with a divider. And that is the homework to be turned in part of the binder. And that will help you make sure that the work gets from home to school. Okay, procrastination. This is for the kid or the adult who has trouble with follow through with their work. They're always putting things off. And even if they start doing the work, they're not necessarily going to finish it within a reasonable amount of time. For this kid, you want to absolutely maintain a strict start time, allowing for a break right after school. If you allow for that break after school, what you're doing is building in procrastination time for this kid. If they're going to procrastinate anyway and they're going to dilly-dally, build in the dilly-dally. So you get home from school, you can run around outside, you can play a video game, whatever it is that you're going to allow your kids to do. Build in that procrastination time, and then they can sit down and get down to business. With younger kids, you might want to play beat the clock. This isn't going to work too great with older kids because they're just going to think it's lame. But with little kids, if you have an assignment that you know should take your child no longer than 10 minutes, but this is an assignment that you feel like your child would probably stretch into 25 or 30 minutes so that it becomes 3 hours worth of homework that night, play beat the clock. You big smile on your face, you can set a timer and say, hey, let's play a game. Let's see if you can get this worksheet finished before the timer dings. Now, there's another kid called the rusher who we're going to talk about in a little bit, and we don't want to use this for the rusher, but for the procrastinator kid and for the kid who has a little bit of trouble with follow through, beat the clock can be really effective. You want to use rewards and time suckers. We'll talk about what those are in a minute for work completed. So you can, if your child has 3 assignments, maybe they have to read 2 pages and they have a worksheet to do and they have to go over their spelling words. For each completed assignment, you can give them one of those time suckers for a few minutes. Time suckers are things like smartphones or video games, all of those things where you hold this thing in your hand and all of a sudden you look up and go, well, holy cow, 30 minutes have gone by. Those are time suckers. So what you might want to do with that child is say, okay, once you read these 2 pages, then I will give you 10 minutes on your phone or 15 minutes on a video game. After that, you have to come back and then we'll do your worksheet. After your worksheet, you get 10 minutes to play on your phone or 10 minutes to text a friend or something like that. Then you come back and we're going to do a third part. So you're rewarding completion of work with this child. You want to discuss have-tos versus want-tos with your child who has a procrastination problem. And actually, this can help with adults with procrastination problems too. Every day and every evening for kids, they have things they have to do and they have things they want to do. The have-tos are things like your homework. You have to, maybe there's a rule in your house, you have to eat dinner with your family, or even if you're not going to eat, you have to sit there with your family. You have to take a bath, you have to go to bed. Your want-tos are the things that you enjoy doing, but they don't have to be done, like video games or reading a book or playing outside or something like that. Have your child, and assist them with this, come up with lists. These are the things I have to do in the evening. These are the things I want to do in the evening. I have to get through my have-tos before I can do my want-tos. If I dilly-dally and procrastinate and take 3 hours with my have-tos, then I might only get 15 minutes with my want-tos. But if I can really buckle down and go through that have-to list quickly, I might get an hour or an hour and a half with my want-tos. So help them to understand have-tos have to get done first, but the amount of time that you spend on your have-tos, you have a lot of control over that. And the more you procrastinate and the more you put things off, the less time you're going to have for your want-tos. It really helps some kids to actually see the lists and to actually, for you to point out how spending too much time over here can impact the amount of time they get to spend over here. Schedule short breaks for these kids. Again, they're procrastinators and they dilly-dally, so build it into the schedule, okay? And let's go back up to that rewards thing. That's what you're doing with the rewarding small chunks of work completed. You're building the procrastination into their schedule. And then with this child especially, you want to be proactive about projects and tasks. This is a kid who's going to wait till the last minute to build a diorama, and you're going to be running around looking for glitter and glue at 10 o'clock at night, the night before it's due, if you're not proactive about it and if you don't help them to chunk those projects and chunk that studying into manageable pieces. Okay, the rusher kid is the exact opposite of the procrastinator kid. This is a kid who just wants to get it done. He or she doesn't care if it's correct. They don't care if it's neat. They don't care if it's legible. They just want to get it done and they want it out of their lives. So obviously we're going to treat the rusher much differently than we treated the procrastinator, because it's two completely separate problems. It's two completely separate issues. And so obviously we're going to have to use different strategies for this kid than we did for the procrastinator. So for example, playing beat the clock with a rusher, completely counterproductive, and you definitely don't want to do that because they're rushing anyway, okay? So with the rusher, what do we do with this kid? The kid who just wants to get it done. This is the kid who sometimes they'll come home from school and you say, did you do your homework? And they say, I did it on the bus. And they probably did do it on the bus, but the assignment that should have taken 20 minutes maybe took them 2 minutes, and none of it's correct and half of it's not right and nobody can read it, okay? So for this kid, you want to set expectations for the assignment up front. So you take a look at the assignment and you say to them, okay, look, this says that has to be complete sentences. So please bring me complete sentences. Or we have to be able to read your handwriting. So make sure that you spend enough time so that we can actually read what you're writing down here. For this child, you're not going to reward for completing the assignment. You're going to reward on things such as accuracy and neatness. Now, when I say accuracy, I'm not talking about perfection, okay? Homework is given because it's a reinforcer. Obviously, if the child could perfectly do their homework and get everything right, they wouldn't need the homework in the first place. So we're not looking for perfection, but what we're looking for is it neat enough to read, and is it reasonably accurate? So if you bring it to me and you've done all of the problems and you've gotten maybe more than half of them right, you determine what accuracy looks like and I can read it, then I'm going to give you one of those small rewards, like you can text your friend for 10 minutes or you can play a video game before we move on to the next assignment, okay? So remember, for this child, you are not rewarding getting it done. You're rewarding getting it done neatly enough that we can read it and with some degree of accuracy. You want to set a dedicated work time and create a dedicated work menu for this child. So what does that mean? So if I have a child who's a rusher and I take a look at an assignment, I might think to myself as a parent, okay, this should reasonably take my child 15 minutes. So when the child brings you the worksheet, you let them know, okay, I think that you should spend 15 minutes on this worksheet. So if you get it done in 5 minutes, that's fine, but I'm going to give you 10 more minutes worth of work to make up that 15-minute block of time. And then there's going to be a menu that you're going to create that's going to have work on it that they can do to make up that time. So it can be something like look up information online on your favorite animal, or read a few pages of a book, or write your spelling words one time each, or something like that. So what you're doing is setting up a situation. You're telling your child, okay, I think this should take you 15 minutes. And so you may as well spend the full 15 minutes trying to get this right and not rush through it so quickly that it's all wrong and I can't read it. Because if you don't spend 15 minutes on this, if you only spend 5 minutes on it, you're still going to do 15 minutes worth of work because I'm going to give you an extra 10 minutes worth of work. So there's no incentive really for you to rush through this because you're going to have to do the 15 minutes worth of work regardless of whether you do it on this worksheet or you do 5 minutes on this worksheet and 10 minutes researching an animal of your choice. Okay, so I am going to determine the amount of time I think this should take for you. If I was in your shoes, child, I would probably make sure that my worksheet takes the full 15 minutes so that I don't have to do extra. And that way you're taking, a lot of kids, they rush because they want to get to the fun stuff. So if you make sure that they understand, this is a reasonable amount of time for this assignment, and I'm not going to let you get out of it early because I'm going to assign you extra work. If you try to finish it early, then very often they will say, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to take my time and do this worksheet correctly. Okay. Easily frustrated. This is the child who, if there is something particularly that they don't understand, or an assignment that is so big that it seems overwhelming for them, they might get really upset and start to cry or start to throw a tantrum, especially when it's something that they don't understand. So there's specific things that we can do to help the child who does become easily frustrated. Number one is the PNP method, positive, negative, positive. So what does this mean? So if I'm a child who has trouble with math, and I do a math worksheet and I bring it to my parent so that they can look it over and tell me what I did correctly and what I did incorrectly. If every time I hand my parent that worksheet, all I hear is, this is wrong, 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 it doesn't do a whole lot to make me feel good about things and to feel good about math. So what we want to do is sandwich all of that negative. We have to give that feedback. We have to let them know that this isn't correct and this is how we fix it, but we sandwich it between positive and positive. And this actually works not just with our kids who are easily frustrated, but in all communication. Lots of research has been done in the field of communication around the fact that if we have some negative that we have to present to someone, if we can sandwich that negative in between some positive, it takes a lot of the emotional punch out of the negative. So when my child brings me the worksheet that might have a lot of problems on it, the first thing I might look at is I might look at it and say, hey, that's great. You remembered to put your name on it. Fantastic. I'm really proud of you for that. Okay, now this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And then at the end, say something like, your handwriting here was fantastic. I can read all of your numbers and I think that's really great. Okay, so I still had to give that negative feedback. I had to give that criticism of the stuff in the middle, but I sandwiched all of that negative in between some positives to take some of that emotional punch out of it. Let your child do the easier assignments first. So maybe your child has 3 assignments to do. One is easy, one is moderate, one is difficult. Let her do the easiest assignment first so that she can do it quickly and she can feel some success about that and she can feel good about it. Have her do the hardest assignment next while she's coming off the high of that having done the easy assignment. So easy first, then the hardest, and then everything else fills in after that. Okay, easiest, hardest, the rest. You also want to help this child chunk the work like we've talked about for some other kids. So if she has 10 long division problems, divide them up into maybe 3 problems, 3 problems, 3 problems, and 1 problem. So you do 3 problems and then you get a little break. You do 3 more problems, then you get a little break. We're not going to look at 10 problems because that's really overwhelming. And sometimes what you can do, if you have the 10 problems on a piece of paper, you can actually fold the piece of paper so that all your child is seeing is the first 3 problems. Okay, they're not seeing the whole page of problems, they're just seeing a few. So you can chunk it, but you can also physically chunk it so that all they see are the first few problems and not the whole thing. And then for this child, you want to make sure that you reward for completion of work. And you can reward with those time suckers that we've talked about too, but you can also reward a child, praise as a reward. And so when we talk about rewarding for, neatness or rewarding for accuracy or rewarding for completion, it doesn't always have to be like a physical reward. It can be, you know what, I am so proud of you for getting through your work tonight without getting upset about it. I know that's really hard for you to do, and I'm just really, really proud of you. Or I'm proud of you for getting through these 3 problems without getting upset. It doesn't have to be a whole night's worth of work. Anytime they do something where you feel like they're making progress, make sure that they understand that you recognize that, you recognize how difficult that is for them, and you are really, really proud of them for the progress that they're making. Praise is rewards too. It doesn't just have to be a video game. Okay, and then inattentiveness. Inattentiveness sometimes goes hand in hand with disorganized. This is the kid who just has a little bit of trouble focusing for long periods of time. And again, some of this stuff applies to adults too. This is the one where I see myself. I can pay attention to something really, really easily for a good 20 minutes or so. And then after that, I start to have some trouble, especially in this virtual format. So for those of you who have hung in with me longer than 20 minutes, congratulations, because that would be hard for me to do. More than 20 minutes and I start to have some issues. One thing you want to do with a child who has, or adult who has trouble paying attention, encourage movement prior to starting work. So if you know they're going to have to sit in front of a computer for 30 minutes or 45 minutes or for however long, for 15 minutes prior to that, let them move. Let them run around the house. Let them go outside. Let them do jumping jacks. Let them do anything to sort of, we call it, teachers call it getting the wiggles out. And it can be really, really effective so that we can actually sit down and zone in on things. Let them move around while they're doing their work when possible. We talked about my son earlier who, with his spelling words, he would literally be climbing the door jambs in our living room while we were doing spelling words. And if that's appropriate, if that's possible, let them do it. Some kids, they like to study. I've heard of kids who like to study on treadmills. So they actually will put their notes on a treadmill and walk on the treadmill while they're studying. And for whatever reason, it does help them to retain the information better and it helps them to pay attention. Frequent breaks are very important for these people. Again, adults as well. You know, for me, sometimes if I can sit down and do 20 or 30 minutes worth of work uninterrupted, I will allow myself to get up and go walk around the house, or, you know, get up and do something for 2 minutes or so, and then I'll come back and get to it again. It's just knowing that you have that break and you're going to be able to get to that break within a certain period can be very motivating as far as attention is concerned. You want to remove as many distractions as you can. In this current environment where many of us are at home together doing our work all of the time, it can be extremely distracting. You want to try to remove as many distractions as you can for this child. You want to be very consistent with time and place for their work. And again, for this child, you're rewarding getting the work done. You're rewarding completion of work. Okay, so wrap up. How can parents help? This is just a quote that I really like by Joyce Maynard. It's not only children who grow, parents do too. As much as we watch to see what our children do with their lives, they are watching to see what we do with ours. I can't tell my children to reach for the sun. All I can do is reach for it myself. I think we can all agree that right now, we've all gone through growing pains in this past year. Our kids have grown, but I think, you know, as challenging as it has all been, we have grown too. We've determined, wow, look what I can do when pressed, or wow, look what I really need to get some help with. We have all grown, and our kids are seeing how we respond to all of this. They're watching us, and we can tell kids all day long what to do, but we really need to set examples. I remember when my daughter was learning to drive. She's my oldest of my 3 kids. They're all drivers now. But when she was the first one learning to drive, and I remember I was in the car with her one day, and she was going 60 and a 55. And I said, you need to slow down. The speed limit's 55. And she said, well, the speed limit's 55, but it's really 60. And what she meant by that was her entire life, she had seen me, her mother, drive 5 miles over the speed limit, because I had figured out 5 miles over isn't going to get you a ticket, and it's going to get you there like 30 seconds faster. And so even though she knew the law said 55 was the limit, she knew in the reality of my life, what she had been watching her entire life, the speed limit was really 60. We can tell them all day long what we want them to do, but they're watching to see what we do. So how do we conduct ourselves in such a way that we are good examples for our kids? Next. Okay, so we want to set an example. And here are some ways that you can do that. Number one, we talked about this earlier, you need to take care of your own needs. They are watching us to determine how to conduct themselves. If they see us taking care of ourselves, they see us making sure we get enough sleep, they see us taking breaks when we need breaks, they see us taking deep breaths, doing breathing exercises, they see us exercising, they see us taking care of ourselves, they are going to learn that that's what adults do and that that's effective. And so they are going to take care of themselves as well. You want to model and teach organizational skills. We've talked a lot about chunking large projects. So if there's a large project in your life, For example, maybe you want to clean out the garage and you've been talking about it for a year. I need to clean out the garage. I need to clean out the garage. I need to clean out the garage. What they're seeing is we talk an awful lot about the things we need to do, but do we ever actually do that? Okay. If they see us procrastinating, they're going to procrastinate. So maybe what you can do then, if you've been saying for a year that you need to clean out the garage, maybe you can say, you know what? I've decided it's time to clean out the garage. And this is how I'm going to handle that. This Saturday, I'm going to clean out this section of the garage. So they see that you've set a goal, and then you go and you meet that goal. And then 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks from Saturday, I'm going to clean out that section of the garage. So they're watching that you are setting goals for yourself, you're setting manageable goals, you're chunking the work, and you're getting the work done on time. It really, really does help them to understand how to manage workloads themselves. You want to limit your own tech time. I know a lot of us, we are addicted to these things, and I'm probably one of them, and we spend way too much time looking at our phones while we're at the same time telling our kids, you need to get off your phone, you need to get off a screen, you need to get off of technology. They need to hear us and watch us understand that we need to do the same thing for ourselves. So if you know that you have a problem with screens and you're trying to help your child not have a problem with screens, maybe let your child know, you know what, I think I need to limit my own tech time. I'm going to go put my phone away for a couple of hours, and then have them watch you do that. It sets a really good example for them for limiting their own tech time, especially now when we're all having to spend so much more time on screens than we used to. Don't procrastinate. That one speaks for itself. And then let your kids see you reading, discovering, and learning for fun. We don't want our kids to believe that learning is something that takes place between the hours of 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. at some building down the street. Okay. We want them to understand that learning is something that is lifelong. It's all day long. It's all year long, and it's enjoyable and it's fun. So let them see you do that. If they ask you a question, for example, why is the sky blue? Say, you know what? I don't know. Let's go find out. And help them to figure out why the sky is blue. Let them see you reading. Let them see you learning, and point out to them that that's what you're doing when you're doing it. These examples can really go a long way toward helping our kids to develop the kind of work habits that are going to help them in the future. Okay, here is my contact information. This is my email address. I am in my email all day long, so I respond to that very quickly. My phone number is there. Like I said, that is my office phone number, but we are all working at home right now. But I do check my messages at least 3 times a day. So if you give me a call, I will be happy to call you back. If you have an issue with one of your specific children, and even if you have issues that aren't related to this presentation, if you're having an issue, with IEPs, you're having an issue, working with the school division, that's part of my function, is to help schools and families to work through their issues together. I am very happy to set up a time to talk to you. It's what I do. It's what I enjoy doing. And I promise to respond to you if you get in touch. Just make sure if you do email me, or especially if you call me, sometimes people will call and they'll leave a message and they forget to leave a callback number, and then I can't get back in touch with them. So if you do call me and leave a message, just make sure you leave contact information so that I can get back in touch with you. And I appreciate everybody's attention today. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you so much, Tracy. It's not easy to do a presentation virtually like that. I applaud you. Great.
Thank you.